I'd like to give you a little bit of a brief about this session and how it came together. As Nozi mentioned, my name is Kareman Shoair. I run the research division at the Gerhart Center, and I also serve as an adjunct faculty in the Department of Economics. Over the past few years, my work has been focused heavily on the intersection between philanthropy and innovative finance for impact. My team at the Gerhart Center and I, and of course Dr. Ali, have been working on mapping and researching various emerging models of development finance strategies. These include areas such as blended finance models, impact investing models, community-led philanthropic models, and of course, faith-based philanthropy. One of the key takeaways that I have come to appreciate over time is that there is no exclusive path for sustainable and effective finance for development. As you all know, when it comes to the development space, problems are heavily contextual. There is no blueprint, right? So of course, here, innovation is a key. And we study so deeply innovation and innovative model, complicated stuff. But perhaps sometimes the most innovative thing we could do is that we innovate inwards. Is to look inwards, to look in our traditions, in our faith, in our indigenous institutions, and try to find solutions there. And what's really remarkable is that in a continent where faith plays a critical role in shaping our societies, our culture, our history, the question of engaging faith traditions, the question of engaging religious institutions, in development model is often overlooked. And even when it's addressed, if it's not perceived as a danger or like sensitive, it's at the very best be seen as old-fashioned or ineffective, okay? So why do we have this paradox? That's why I was very excited when we got an invitation to put this panel together. Why do we have this paradox? And what is the state of faith-based philanthropy now? Is faith-based philanthropy capable of responding to the present challenges before us? And how can we unlock its potentials? I'm very excited with my panel here, with my panelists. We have great people, Dr. Hellyer, Senior Associate Fellow at the Royal United Service Institute in the UK. We have Dr. Marwa Daly, founder and chairperson of Waqfeyat Misr and adjunct faculty member GAP here at the AUC. We have also Perihan, Regional Partnership Director in Greenpeace MENA, and you already met Mohsen. So please join me in a round of applause for my panelists. Okay, let's start by framing this discussion broadly. Also, we have Dr. Ezra Chitando. I'm not sure if we will be able to have him online. But Professor Ezra Chitando, hopefully he can join. He's a professor of history and religion in the University of Zimbabwe. And he was planning to come, but unfortunately, last-minute challenges stood against that. So let's get started by framing the discussion broadly. Then we can move to specifics a little bit later. We'll start here with Dr. Hellyer. And I'd like you to help us contextualize this conversation from in the current geopolitical moment. Because Dr. Hisham have a unique position on this panel since his expertise come in geopolitics and security studies. You do see how the international aid system and development ecosystem at large is facing a massive crisis at present. Where do communities turn to for help at this moment? And who do they trust? Do faith-based actors play any role now?
Good afternoon. First, Kareman, thank you very much for inviting me here. It's a pleasure to be at AUC a rather long time ago, rather probably too long to admit to all of you. I was a visiting professor at the law department here. And it was when AUC was still all in Tahrir. So that gives you a sense about, unfortunately, my age. I prepared notes. And as I hear your question, the notes seem extremely irrelevant. Because when we think about aid provision today, as I was coming here today from Cairo, the announcement came out from, I think it was the World Food Program or another UN agency, saying that what we're seeing in Gaza today is the worst example of famine that we've seen. And yesterday, 2 Israeli human rights organizations, B'Tselem and Physicians for Human Rights, came out and declared that what Israel has been doing in Gaza is genocide. So when we talk about aid provision, and when we talk about how communities are being served by the international aid apparatus and architecture, this keeps on ringing in my head. Now, I know many people within the UN and different parts of the broader international humanitarian universe, and they're great, wonderful people, with the exception of one organization called the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, wa na'uzu billah. The reality, though, is that this architecture has failed. And it has failed because it has proven unable to overcome obstacles that states like the State of Israel have imposed as obstacles to defuse the willful starvation of hundreds of thousands of people at this point. And when we consider that reality, and I'm also trying to think about this from the point of view of people who are on the ground, who we might talk to and tell them, this is why this happens and this is why that happens. But the reality is as far as they're concerned, they're just starving. And the world has failed them. The Financial Times just published their leader opinion piece today. It's from the editorial board and says the world has failed the people of Palestine. And I think that's an indictment of really all of us. And I think it also leads people on the ground in situations, not just Gaza, but other parts of the world where starvation, where famine are taking place, to conclude that this grand thing called the international community is really quite hollow, that calls for comprehensive security, human security, they're not dabbling in hypocrisy. There's no standards at all, and I don't think that humanitarians and people in the philanthropic space should feel that they have no responsibility in this regard, because I think we all do. I think that the entirety of the world, when faced with such awful travesties, I won't call them tragedies, but travesties that are manifested in places like Gaza, in places like Sudan, and other conflict points around the world, which, by the way, I may not be mentioning, but that's because my field of expertise is limited, not because there aren't many others that exist. So, and I'm sure many of you will know of others. The reality is that we have a great deal of work to do. And trust on the ground, I won't say it evaporated. I think it's gone far beyond that. I think that people are in such dire, really distressful situations that we really need to do better. And we need to understand that this is a new moment. We can't do things the way that it used to be. I think it was mentioned in the keynote that this is a very challenging time for aid organizations because, of course, institutions like USAID have been completely throttled. You have less emphasis on the provision of aid and more emphasis on building up defense capacity. And I come from a defense think tank. I'm not saying that this is unnecessary, but this is it's a new world, and it's not a prettier one.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hellyer. Mohsen, before we go to Dr. Ezra, some of the participants here have heard your very insightful talk. However, they are not very well aware of Islamic philanthropy as a system. So, from your expertise in the Egyptian Food Bank, which is one of the major receivers of zakat and sadaqat, can you just give us a brief about the Islamic philanthropy mechanisms that you guys work with in the Egyptian Food Bank?
It's a very broad question, so I'll try to, take a jab of it one piece at a time. So the Egyptian Food Bank, more than 90% of our funding is zakah money. And that's the state of the giving environment in Egypt as a whole. In the US, the giving environment is not much different. Approximately 80%, again, from the funds going around are faith-based. It puts a huge responsibility on us because what I might not have explained fully in my talk, most Abrahamic religions, the deed of giving is fulfilled once the money is out, no matter what happens afterwards. So it's on us this time, not on the person who gives. The person who gives, he passes the responsibility to the zakah collecting institution, which is, I would talk from the vantage point of the Egyptian Food Bank. Then it is on us to optimize and see how this money will be best spent. I was just talking to some of my friends outside over lunch. It's a very scary place to be. We know stories about the Khalifa Omar ibn al-Aziz, which I've just mentioned. When he was in charge of Bayt al-Mal, which is the zakah collecting institution at that time, he got a huge donation of misk, which has a very beautiful smell. He didn't want to smell it, so as not to take from the smell that is not his, but it comes to the Bayt al-Mal as a zakah to other people. This is a very scary job, and it's a very scary place to be as someone responsible for a zakah institution. What we're trying to do is we try to optimize that spending, respecting the current environment we're in, that we have people who work with us, and these people have rights, and they expect a certain minimum standard of a good employment. And we try to rely as much as we can on evidence and science and what has proven to work in our region in order to scale programs that already we know will work. We're not in the business of experimenting at scale. We try to experiment on a prototype units, small minimum viable units that we could learn from at scale, but we try as much as we can to go with the true old and trusted programs that science tells us it works. And we try to be transparent as much as we can. We've launched recently a transparency portal. It's called Right to Know. It's very simple, rtk.efb.eg. Whatever we spend, we put it on that portal. Whatever we spend on salaries, we put it on that portal. We publish our impact reports on that portal. And we try to open ourselves up to the world, to make ourselves accountable and to ease the burden and the responsibility that is put on us and pass some of it back to the donor. Yeah.
Thank you, Mohsen. Dr. Ezra, are you able to hear us?
Yes, indeed. Good afternoon.
Okay, excellent. Good afternoon, Professor Ezra. Professor Ezra, as a professor of religion, can you tell us about the role of faith and religion and religion play in providing charity and contributing to the culture of giving in African context?
Thank you very much for the question and all protocols observed. I would like to put three main positions. Number one, faith is absolutely critical in terms of providing the religio-ideological basis upon culture of giving has been generated in Africa. So number one, religion provides the framing that allows faith communities to share and to act in solidarity. Number two, faith communities are there for the long term. So whereas sometimes non-governmental organizations are there temporarily, faith-based organizations tend to be there for the long term. Then third, faith institutions tend to go the extra mile. Let me quote something I saw on a public service vehicle, and I quote, "All gave some, but some gave all." End of quote. Faith communities are in that category of people who give their all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Ezra. Dr. Marwa, let's just talk about the institutionalization of religious philanthropy. Waqf, or Islamic endowment, it's a historical tradition in Muslim cultures that many believe can help accelerate developed finance today. Can you tell us more about Waqf and its evolution, and how is this institution, over 1,000 years old, being applied in a modern context?
Thank you, Kareman. Thank you very much. I would like to start like you started, that for me, the last time I was here at Basili, I was speaking to TEDx in front of young people to empower them. And here I'm speaking also to a young generation, all of you guys. And I want to take the same platform also to express my solidarity with what is happening in Gaza, with the Gazan people in Palestine. As we speak, that people are being starved to death by the Israeli occupation. I think before tackling anything, especially that we're talking about faith-based giving, it should be an eye-opener to all of us, to our sector, especially those who are practicing, civil society practitioners. We have been focusing for so long on charity, on direct aid, on receiving money from foreign donors, and we forgot to invest in equitable education, technology for our youth. And this is what makes us more powerful amongst this world where peace is defined and directed now by power. So let me quote first quoting Prophet Muhammad, actually not quoting Prophet Muhammad, but when the message was revealed to him by Jibril, the first word he received in the Quran was Iqra, read. Therefore, in our region, the importance of knowledge and science in faith-based giving has always been the backbone of civil society and all community service, whether schools, universities, hostels, across centuries, when our economies led and inspired the world. These same institutions that are being bombarded now, by the way, in Gaza, these same institutions that are being closed down or destroyed by every colonial power. So on behalf now of Waqfeyat Misr, to focus on Waqf, I have the honor to have founded this institution because we have gone a very long path in reviving and innovating an ancient model called Waqf, one of the oldest forms of faith-based giving in the world, deeply rooted in our region and traditions, one that used to be the primary source of sustaining education, hospitals, and all civic activities in our region. Waqf in its essence means to halt. Waqf in Arabic language means halt or stop. To freeze the capital like an endowment and invest. It's all about investment. Then spend only the return or the income on public good. Whether for education, health, or supporting the vulnerable, Waqf is a model of perpetuate giving that preserves purpose, impact, and protects giving dignity across generations. As I think of Trust Africa, that I'm also very proud of being part of their member of the board, it's not only about trusting Africa, of the word trust, but it's also a jeu de mots, like we say, like it's also a trust, like a waqf, that support Africa, African development. And this is a dream that we are trying collectively to achieve, a trust, a waqf to support Africa autonomously. I always integrate even this waqf model in whatever I teach at AUC because I think this is our narrative that we need to make our student and our youngster understand how it shaped the world. Faith in Africa has never been separate from our public life. It is how we care for one another. How we build equity has never been charity. It is the moral core of justice. Ubuntu, you are because I am because you are. Yet, innovation is what we need to focus on. We need to stop being consumers of innovation. We need to start believing first and foremost that we are capable of innovation to be able to set the rules of the game, starting with this right now, with us. We are now at AUC, and we could have been in Cairo University or Azhar University. And these are, if you notice, if you go to any country, these are always, these institutions, the university institutions, are always the oldest buildings that are highly preserved. Why? Because they were built by local community members and preserved by waqf or endowment. From Al Zaytuna University in Tunisia, the oldest university in the world, to Al Qarawiyyin in Morocco, that was in the 8th century, that was 737, to Morocco, founded by Fatma al-Fihri, who founded Al Qarawiyyin in 859, to Al-Azhar University in Egypt, the third oldest university in the whole world, based on waqf. These actually Azhar, only to give you an idea, Azhar was named Al-Azhar because of the daughter of the president, Fatma al-Zahra, so it was even to honor her. So all these universities were like the beacon of knowledge and science, and this is what we exported to the whole universities, to the whole world. If you look now, they started with our region in Africa, and they came to Italy through the University of Bologna with the waqf. They took the same model, and from the Bologna they spread to France, Paris, Sorbonne, and from Paris to Oxford, and now to the whole world, and so on and so on. So Harvard, for example, now has a waqf of over 53 billion US dollars. So just to imitate something, I'm sure you will know who I'm imitating. Don't they thank us for that? We need to be thanked for that. Maybe even they need to pay us for that. So when we speak of bridging faith, equity, and innovation, we're not simply modernizing philanthropy. We are grounding it in who we are, our rich African heritage, our spiritual commitment, and our collective will to decolonize our narrative. That is the work ahead, and at Waqfeyat Misr Foundation, at AUC, at Trust Africa, I'm proud we're walking that path, and even prouder that we are walking it together. And as we Africans say, If you want to walk fast, walk alone. Can you continue? If you want to walk far, walk together. And I think together with the moderation of Kareman, we're gonna end up this session with very good news that we have to really start right here on believing in the power of an institution like Waqf, where our perpetuate giving can really help us regain the power that our sector can really make a change and have a weight of what is happening around us. Thank you.
Thank you, Marwa. Thank you so much. Perihan, climate change is not on the very top priorities among all the challenges that we face in our region. Some people might perceive it as a luxury, and I'm sure you've met this comment as you go to fundraise or even to engage in conversations around faith-based philanthropy and climate change. But at Greenpeace, you managed to establish some sort of a relation that when we had a conversation that it's actually a duty on Muslims to take care of the environment. If you can just give us a brief about your experience with that and tell us, can faith-based philanthropy respond to a modern challenge like climate change?
Thank you, Kareman. I'm happy being here with you today. So actually, I'll start this with a question. What do we owe to the generations who are coming, walking this earth after us? Because actually, climate change is not an upcoming scenario. It's happening right now. And MENA, the most water-scarce region. So actually, if we're talking about a 2-degree warming scenario, this means a fresh water drop 15 to 45%. And according to, and it hits with a lot of other crises, like for example, 82 million children face extreme climate risk, from heat waves to air pollution to water insecurity. And in 2021, almost 15.7 million displaced in MENA due to climate-related and other crises. And these are not just numbers, these are stories. Stories of loss, injustice, and disruption. So, and it's not also an ecological issue. It's, again, injustice. And zakat here, it becomes, the faith-based giving generally becomes transformational, or at least this is how we perceive it. In Islam, we're not the owners of earth, we're stewards. وَلَا تَصْرِفُوا إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. A call for moderation and to avoid overconsumption. وَلَا تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ بَعْدَ إِصْلَاحِهَا. A command not to cause harm or corruption after the earth has been made good. These are not just moral ideals. These are sustainability principles embedded in our faith. And in Greenpeace MENA, yes, we view Islamic giving like zakat, sadaqah, waqf, the endowment, as a force for climate resilience. Redirecting just 5% of Islamic finance assets, it's unlock for, just to double check my numbers, $400 billion until 2030, I'm sorry. Imagine what this could mean for food security, water access, green job, and energy equity in our region. And this is where we created our Ummah for Earth Alliance. This is an alliance which consists of almost 55 members coming from more than 10 countries, consisting of Global North and Global South. And I'll tell you about it later when it comes to it. But here, yes, the Islamic giving here could be a good source for funding solar energy, for example, in public buildings, reforest degraded land, or even empower young women to lead climate action. So faith here is one of the most powerful forces in our region. If we align that forth spiritually and financially, we can build a future that protects both creation and community. I wish this taps in as an answer to your question in a way or not.
Thank you so much, Perihan. It definitely did. Back to the big picture again. Dr. Hellyer, you speak to policymakers and to governments. We can see now that there is a growing interest of international governmental institutions to engage faith-based actors. From your position there, can you tell us more about this change and where it has been relevant, if it has at all, in the context of diplomacy, conflict?
Thank you. So again, I will answer this question simply from the standpoint and vantage point of myself, in terms of what I focus on, and I'm sure other people have their own experiences. But what I've noticed, and this I'm thinking over the past 20 years, what I've noticed is an increased sense of securitization over, quote unquote, the interfaith developmental space. And again, I say this as somebody who is not part of that space. I observe it because I'm part of the security establishment. I don't think this is a positive development at all, because it means that the engagement of faith-based actors is dependent on them passing certain types of litmus tests that are actually not about security, but about showing that they can be helpful to the securitization paradigm. And again, I don't find this helpful at all. I think it actually damages those faith-based organizations a lot. And you see this also making things difficult when faith-based organizations or faith actors are trying to get support for capacity to engage in very troubling, very difficult issues. And they're subjected to these types of securitization tests. And again, I see this a lot over the last few years. It's gone a bit quiet right now, but very big actors in the arena of philanthropy are very, very involved in trying to normalize engagements with, quote unquote, interfaith bodies that are trying to normalize the state of Israel on a political level in this region. If people want to do that, then let them go ahead and do that. But to condition entry into that space on that basis, I find incredibly troubling, because you have a situation where today, domestically, the state of Israel is criticized for being an apartheid state. Okay, and again, this is something that Israeli human rights organizations talk about a lot. And then, of course, externally, the crime of genocide with regards to Gaza. I'm not saying that you have to believe that. People can object to the term if they choose, but what they can't deny is that there's a huge amount of evidence to show that there are massive criminal activities taking place. And if you condition people's entry into this philanthropic space on the basis of them having a certain vested interest in the securitization paradigm like that, then I think it's deeply problematic. I do think that in some areas of particularly different Western governments, things have changed over the past sort of 5 years or so, but that's really down to domestic issues, right? So there used to be, for example, within the US State Department, an office for religion and global affairs. It doesn't exist anymore. The irony is that the Trump administration is a far more overt place for religious expression, to the point where the State Department just issued guidance yesterday saying that missionary activity for federal employees is now apparently okay. I think this actually goes against certain provisions of American law, but that's not my business. So I do think that there's been this instrumentalization of faith for very deeply political purposes, and people ought to be aware of it, and people also ought to compare. How would have faith organizations been expected to act in the battle against apartheid in South Africa, which my father was a part of actually, and compare that to how things are going on now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hellyer. Back to Dr. Chitando. Can you hear us?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah, if you may tell us some example from the continent where you see where you think it's like success and failed story of engaging faith-based actor. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Yeah,
hear
and engaging faith-based actors in responding to conflicts or challenges or other challenges that face the continent.
Thank you for the question. Faith actors have been unique and outstanding in terms of philanthropic work in Africa, as I've said and as colleagues have shared. And in my own work, I can testify to the outstanding work done by women, particularly women of faith within the African faith community. Number one, I could say that women are the miracle workers in terms of achieving more with less. I can also say that women faith actors became very prominent during the COVID-19 pandemic, where we saw the outreach done by women to the underprivileged. And then finally, the interfaith collaboration that women philanthropic workers within the faith community have demonstrated. So if you ask me, I would say that the faith community has been very radical in terms of providing support and social justice, but that activity must be located in the outstanding work by women of faith. I submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Chitando. Back to Mohsen. The tension between like religious philanthropy, should it be more into charity or development? Can you share with us how do you guys strike the balance? We know that Zakat has a specific channels that you can only work through when it comes to your Zakat fund and how you collect Zakat. But there has been like an interest from the religious institutions in Egypt to relook at the interpretation of these channels. How do you deal with this as Egyptian food bank? Does this make any difference at all with the new fatwas about the interpretation of the Masarif Zakah, that it can be used in development as well, not just in charity?
It's a very interesting question, but let me start by how we view the difference between charity and development. To us, there isn't any difference. It's like two sides to the same coin. Development is moving people in its most basic form. Development, I'm talking of course about human development, is moving people from point A to point B, full stop. And if we're talking about optimizing the use of funding, then we'll say moving from point A to point B at the most efficient path possible. And we will find that there is very rigorous evidence on pure cash transfers as one of the most effective ways to lift people from poverty. And it's a very strong wave in development science now. We'll take an example of an institution which I mentioned in my talk, Give Directly. Tons and tons of very rigorous research on how just giving people cash in their hands, which we view as pure charity, if you'll say, just giving people cash in their hands is one of the most effective and efficient ways to graduate them out of poverty, which was called the unconditional cash transfer. when we're looking at it from that perspective, at the Egyptian Food Bank, we divide the society into two different classes, a class that can work and a class that cannot work. For the people who are unable to work, mainly the disabled, elderly citizens, and female-headed households. The mother has 3 or 4 kids, and she already works 1 and 2 and 3 jobs, and still she doesn't have enough income to provide food security to her families. For that class, we give just direct food aid. And then we have another segment of the population, people who are poor, cannot sustain enough food security for themselves, but they have the potential of being integrated into our supply chain, so we integrate them. We borrowed that from the private sector. The private sector call it inclusive business models. We call it just empowerment. For example, we buy at the Egyptian Food Bank around 300,000 chickens a year, mainly to give it to other people who cannot work. We try to source as much as we can from those chickens from women in their homes. We give them chicken feed and we give them small chicks and we buy back the chicken from them. Is that a rightful way to spend zakah? I hope so. I will know in the afterlife. I will not know for sure now. I will find out, but I hope so. Because, again, we're relying on science, we're relying on evidence. We are declaring to the people that we are collecting zakah from that we are in the business of fighting hunger, and this is our framework, very visible on our website. These are the programs that we work in, and people choose to give us zakah. So implicitly, we hope that they trust us to use it in the best way possible.
Thank you so much, Mohsen. Thank you. Marwa, Waqf is like, as we said, it's a traditional institution, and one of the major criticism that we get for religious institutions is that sometimes its approach to development is top-down. How do you ensure from your work in Waqfeyat Misr that you don't lose the grassroots spirit in your work?
Thank you, Kareman, for a very interesting question. Actually, Waqfeyat Misr is all about that. It is about looking at the past and seeing where did it go wrong and trying to correct it. So to start with, we don't have Nazir al-Waqf is now like the controller of the Waqf is a whole board. We work with transparency. We innovate Waqf model. Like for us, it's very important to innovate because Waqf has been stagnant for so long that it's either lands, agricultural lands, and it was taken over by the government, which was against the autonomy of the Waqf as a civic institution. So what we do is, for example, we're launching for now a Waqf for higher education scholarship. I don't know if you know or not, most of our audience from across Africa, the USAID, for example, was funding scholarships in Egypt. Almost 1,077 students benefited from scholarships to study all over Egypt and also at AUC. And all of a sudden, with Trump's decision to cut off USAID, we ran out of the scholarship fund, and our students faced a big challenge. They were the crème de la crème, the best of Egypt, enrolled, and halfway through their education, the scholarship fund stopped. That was an eye-opener, another eye-opener, that we need our own Waqf, we need our own investments. And at Waqfeyat Misr Foundation, together with the Ministry of Higher Education, and we've been talking with private sector, we're launching a scholarship fund based on named Waqf of Egyptians to fund young Egyptian students and help them pursue their higher education in the name of the endower. And I really invite all of you to know more about it, to invest with us. It's not only Egypt, it's across Africa that we want to do this. Another example of innovation is that we're having like a brand name of Egyptian clothing called Ustawat, and I have members of Ustawat sitting here, Madame Abir, Yumna, and Reem. And they are, Usta in Egypt was the head, it was the vocational master. Everything that was Egyptian, I'm sure African, anything like the handicraft, somebody was telling me it's from Mozambique, and the art in Mozambique, the handicrafts in our region is fabulous. And the usta means the headmaster of this. So we launched this business approach with a heart, like you were saying today in your speech, marvelous speech, that we are launching now a business-like entrepreneurial project of producing garments, Egyptian 100% cotton, hotelry, bed sheets and curtains and everything. And I invite you to see it because they're exhibiting this here at AUC for you to look at. And we have deals. We equipped a hotel in Maadi. We're equipping hospitals. So what we are doing is really innovating. In our scholarships, we are focusing on AI so that young people study AI, that they study science, they study all the science majors that will enable us really to gain power and be part of the scientific progress that is happening. So with this, I think what we want to do also is not only that with Waqfeyat Misr now, with partnering with AUC, with Trust Africa. It's a movement. Waqf should be unleashed. Waqf is a product that we give to the whole world. And what we're trying to do now, and we are succeeding to do it, because also we changed one clause in the Constitution. We're also working on the on the policy level, and now clause 90 promises that the government is modernizing and giving us the space to keep the autonomy of Waqf and revive it. Because one of the major issues of Waqf is trust. Because people, when they put a Waqf, they need to know and be sure that in 1,000 years, their Waqf is still funding the cause that they chose for it. So we are working hard now to ensure that the trust is regained, and more people work with us on creating modern Waqfs.
Thank you, Marwa. Thank you. Since we're talking about specific examples here, Perihan, Ummah for Earth. Can you tell us more about this initiative?
In Ummah for Earth as an alliance, so there are different projects, some which are tapping more into a systemic change, like the Islamic finance, for example. And here, this is more of a mobilization to de-invest from fossil fuel and to invest more in green energy and energy transition generally. And there's a lot of other projects which are with the grassroots in Egypt and in different countries across MENA region and even in global north, where we had some initiatives framing the sustainability green principles in Islam. Like, for example, a plastic-free iftar, which happened in Canada, Indonesia, Jordan, and even Egypt. And it wasn't just a moment for people to break the fast, but also for moderation and stewardship. Also, under the Ummah for Earth Alliance, there was a green guide for Hajj and Umrah. And here, it was not just for individuals, but also for business and governments to be able to have kind of green sustainability process and kind of moderation and minimize the consumption in a way or another within these rituals. Yet, there is a lot of challenges, as you mentioned earlier, that yes, still the environment or the environmentalism is perceived as a Western cause or an elitist one. So even though that it firebacks and it already correlates with and causes even a lot of the disasters and catastrophes which are taking place, yet it's still perceived as secondary or luxurious in a way or another.
Thank you so much, Perihan. We would like to take a couple of questions. It's quickly, just any questions or comments, please raise your hand. The gentleman over there, here.
Technical team, can we get assistance with microphones, please? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. My name is James Mema. I work for Impact Kenya. It's an indigenous-based organization that's based in northern Kenya. And it's not more of a question, but just a comment with regards to Professor Haley's discussion. Because to me, I think when overlapping, the overlap between political agenda and also the faith-based philanthropy, when it aligned closely with religious institutions that have political influence and aid, then it become more politicized sometimes. So when we look today at what's happening in Gaza, for example, different people might see it as more political, while other people might see it at the same time as more religious. So as we try to reimagine philanthropy, how can we overcome such instances when it comes to politics with regards to religion?
Can I take the next one, Kareman?
Thank you very much, MC. My name is Moses Tigomurujendontahovali, and I work with the Mukono Church of Uganda Hospital, which is a faith-based institution in the Republic of Uganda. I want first of all thank you for the conversation about faith-based philanthropy. Our hospital is on a road highway, and the church established it entirely to support most of those who get accidents along the road highway. But as the keynote speaker presented, I noted the issue of causes of no effectiveness as part of the giving from the faith-based institutions. Now, for this, which is a cause of great importance, there is a challenge when it comes to sustainability, because as you go to the faithful ones to continue giving, they reach a point of fatigue. I want to get it from you as you fundraise. How far is too far in stopping the fundraising? I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. How far is too far is the question.
Thank you so much. My name is Rachel Mwikali from Pussy Power Movement. That was a very powerful presentation. My question to the panelists, especially when you are looking sustainable fundraising methods and also movement infrastructure, what's your fundraising strategy as religious sectors in terms of also ensuring that even in my own local village, a woman is able to sleep hungry to give the church 100 bob vis-a-vis the value of social justice, where we say we are also fighting for poverty. The last point is around, when you talk about social justice, even as religious sector, we are also seeing the rise of religious fundamentalists who are well-resourced on anti-rights, anti-gender. Where is the role of religious sector calling out accountability to other religious sector that are also causing harm and also causing injustice without delaying the right holder duty bearer perspective? Thank you.
Final hand, I think I saw a chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nozipo. My name is Ivan Steenkamp, and I'm from South Africa, from Aqua Energy Research Institute. Two quick questions to the two gentlemen, starting with the one this side and moving over. First question is that in what ways can faith-based philanthropic institutions integrate equity and innovation to address this modern development challenges that we are facing while we still stay rooted in our traditional values. And I think for the professor online, if you want to also take a bite on that one, that we stay rooted in our traditional values, but how do we integrate it, philanthropic institutions with equity and innovation? And the last question to the gentleman from the food bank, how can partnerships between our faith-based and our secular organizations enhance the sustainability and inclusiveness of our philanthropic efforts in Africa? Thank you, Nazipa.
Thank you very much. Kareman, over to you. Thank you so much. We can hear you.
Okay. Mohsen, if you want to address the question about faith-based philanthropy and sustainability.
So I'll try to tackle 3 words from the questions you've graciously asked. One word is ineffectiveness, and another word is how far is too far in fundraising. And how far is too far. And then the gentleman's question about partnerships between secular and faith-based organizations. So the whole issue of effectiveness and ineffectiveness of social programs, it came into prominence, or how would I say, on the global development scene. I think maybe it's around 2015, when a gentleman, again, student of Singer, which, who I mentioned in my talk, a gentleman called William McCaskill, he published a book. It was called Doing Good Better. And in that book, he tells us the story of another gentleman called Trevor. His last name is escaping me now, who founded a nonprofit called the Play Pumps in Africa, and he installed hundreds of those play pumps. It was like a merry-go-round, and when kids go around it, it gets groundwater up. Instead of people walking distances to get water, the kids just play this game, and it gets them water. And this guy was celebrated internationally. He was named the Development Person of the Year. And he was, if I remember correctly, he was even welcomed by Nelson Mandela and took photographs with him. And the Clinton Foundation gave him millions and millions. And then once the first impact report came about that play pumps model, the guy fell off of grace, and he was called fraud, because the impact report said that the children were being abused in that model, and they were suffering from irreplaceable bone damage, and that the amount of energy that they have to put, in brief, the children in that model, they turned into informal laborers, and most of them were under 6 and under 5. What are we trying to do as faith-based organizations? What if we were not a faith-based organization, would have been a secular organization, we would have acted exactly the same? Because the way we look at our work, we're getting money. This money, it happens to be mostly zakah, but if it wasn't zakah, our job as operators of that money is to make sure that it is optimized and it is spent in the most efficient and effective way possible. How far is too far in fundraising for that cause? I would have to revert here to the faith-based motive of giving for the people, is that they want to get the money out of their system and get the deed done from their side. And in our job as fundraisers, we are in a very unique position because we are asking people for money and we're not giving them anything at all. So if people are getting money out to buy a product, they get the product, buy service, they get the service. When people put money in a nonprofit, they don't get anything at all. The only thing we have to offer them is credibility. I think by being just proper organizations, and by saying proper organizations is that we try to, in the world we're living in now, a proper organization is an organization that first relies on evidence, second, relies on sound management theories when running their operation, and third, they try to be as transparent as they can, because in the end of the day, public organizations or donation-based organizations, they don't belong to anyone. No one owns them, not according to any law. Anyone owns those type of organizations, but we are merely custodians. Who owns those organizations? Anyone who puts a single penny inside. Accordingly, if we'll compare our sector to public companies, listed companies, they disclose everything. And every shareholder, even if he has one share, he has the right to go inside and see what's happening. We have to be like that. We have to be like crystal balls and open ourselves up to the society. I think by just doing that, giving will be, or the fundraiser's job will be much, much more automatic until the point that, and I've reached that point in many parts of my work, until our only job is to just answer the call, pick up the phone. The donors come by themselves. But again, I want just to give a practical advice. Be graceful, especially when you're asking about faith-based gift. Be very graceful, because you're doing the guy a favor that's giving you money, that you're showing him a good path where he could spend his money in. You're not trying to beg for money, you're trying to show him that there is a good way that he can spend his money in. That's it.
Thank you, Mohsen. Hisham, if you want to take.
Thank you for the questions. If you don't mind, I'll try to take them both together and broaden them out just a little bit. So I'd like to remind all of us, in December, the Assad regime fell, alhamdulillah, in Syria. Very shortly thereafter, there was a very interesting scene where the leader of the Ismaili community worldwide had a press conference with, I think it was President Macron in France at the Paris conference, where he declared, the provision of huge amounts of aid to Syria. There's a small Ismaili community in Syria, but the Aga Khan Foundation, of course, does a lot of work worldwide. And the way in which the French engaged with the Aga Khan was not, how do I put this, the agenda was set, I think, partly by the Aga Khan Foundation itself. And of course, they were able to do that because they are independently funded. It's their own money. And on the contrary, policymakers, media professionals, they're going to them, asking them for support and for expertise. This dynamic becomes extremely different, of course, when you have organizations basically surviving or dependent on political decisions by state governments in order for them to survive. And I think we've all seen, particularly over the past 7 months, that as a very arbitrary decision took place in the United States, the ripple effects worldwide were tremendous. And of course, I do think there are lessons to be learned from this, that we have to be very clear that we shouldn't be relying on institutions that simply can't be counted upon as reliable. And I think faith-based organizations that at least that I've engaged with, they're very rooted in their communities, which means that they have expertise and knowledge and know-how about those communities that nobody else can replace, nobody else really has. And if that's the case, they should be really valued as repositories of great sources of information, but that they should be partnered with to actually set the agenda as opposed to being instrumentalized and used. But they can only do that, they'll only have that ability to inject things like equity into the conversation if they themselves have that capacity and independence to be able to set the agenda themselves. And again, speaking as someone who's not in the faith-based sector, somebody who's in security, in defense, in military affairs, I think that that would be a net plus for all of us if they had it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hellyer. I hate to do this, but the organizers are, yeah, معلش, we have to do this. Thank you so much. I thank all the panelists for a great discussion, and I thank the audience for your engagement. I'm sure the conversation will be an ongoing one. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's fantastic. So first and foremost, can we please give Kareman a very, very big round of applause. Congratulations. And might I invite you, all of you, to please just take a step forward to take a photograph. And while they take their photograph, I must say, apologies are in order because there's never enough time. The conversation always demands a little bit more depth, a little bit more breadth, and we just make the best that we can to raise the insights that we have. So thank you to all our speakers and our excellent moderators for a fantastic job. And of course to Professor Ezra, who joins us online, that thank you is extended to you as well. Thank you, sir. A final round of applause, please.